Hello and welcome to Redol's channel. Today I have yet another doll in need of restoration, and this time it's the gorgeous Hula Hair Barbie from 1996. Overall she's in great condition, and it's mostly just her hair that needs some work. Her face screening is nice and crisp, but her wild bangs will need some taming. This doll came to me without her original dress, but I was able to find the whole set online secondhand, including the grass skirt, which is actually really difficult to find. Now the bottom part of her bikini is in really good shape. It's a little bit worn, but overall it's fine. The bikini top is a different thing. You can clearly see it's quite worn, as it's missing some of the gold glittery foil swirls. I'm not actually sure how to call them. And for the grass skirt, even though I'm really happy I found it in an okay condition, I feel like I want to do something to make it look better. It's very thin, it's missing so much tinsel. Luckily the belt is in really good condition, it's not missing any of the flowers. So I'll see what I can do about these. But now back to the doll. Let's start with combing through this beautiful Kanekalon hair. And as you can see, I'm struggling because the hairband has disintegrated and partially got stuck into her hair. Now I'm just gonna take apart this twist braid, which is actually not easy. I'm struggling quite a bit. Now it's time to gently brush through all of her hair to make sure that all of these nasty tangles are gone. Okay, after a lot of struggle, it's done. Now on to the rest of her hair. Did I mention I always wanted the Hula Hair Barbie? I believe one of my friends had her, and I could occasionally play with her. I loved the articulated body. And even though I know that some people don't like the flat feet, I never found any issue with it myself. And while I wish it would be easier to find shoes for these dolls, I still like them the way they are. The color of this hair is absolutely breathtaking, however it's shedding a lot. Thank goodness her hair is rooted so thickly, because you can barely see that she lost an enormous amount of hair in this process. After I'm done with the long hair, I give a little brush to the bangs, and these need a bit more attention, so I switch to the comb. And I need to snip off a bit of this stray hair. I left the doll soak for a couple of hours in a bath of hot water and dishwasher liquid. She really isn't dirty at all, so a quick scrubbing is all she needs. Next step is of course the shampoo, which I want to make sure that it gets everywhere, so I work it in properly. After shampoo comes conditioner, and I like to be very generous with it. I work it into the hair really well, and once all the hair is coated properly, I take my comb and I very gently comb through the hair to make sure that all the knots are taken care of. I'm being very gentle here, and I make sure that I'm not pulling or tugging on the hair too much, but rather I try to unhook all the knots with these short, gentle movements. Once the comb glides through the hair with relative ease, I go on and rinse out the majority of the conditioner out of her hair. Here I don't mind if a bit of the conditioner is left in the hair. Next I'm gonna prepare the boil wash, for which I boiled some water in my electric kettle and let it cool down for a couple of minutes. Then I dip the hair straight into the water, and I start combing through the hair as I'm pulling it out of the hot water. The ideal temperature is under 90 degrees Celsius, because anything hotter than that can cause a bit of damage to the hair, which is still reversible, but we don't want extra work. It might seem that it's an easy process, but I have to be super careful because the water and the hair is super hot, and I really don't want to burn my fingers or my hands. When I'm happy with how the hair feels, I go on and rinse out all of the conditioner I can under cold water. For this step, I like to continue combing the hair because the combination of cold water and the combing helps out straighten the kanekalon hair and keep its shine a bit better. Now I want to show you how I curl bangs by modifying the straw method a bit. You can see that I layered the straw a little bit to make it thicker, because its original size was too small for the bangs that I'm going for. I start with preparing her bangs, and I prepare freshly boiled water in a smaller container that can hold hot water. And it's really important that it has this beak so it's easy to pour. Also notice how long the straw is. It has this handle because I want to make sure that none of the hot water gets on my hands. So I just place the straw under the bangs and I immediately pour a bit of hot water on top of it. This will help the bangs get the initial shape of the straw and be easier to work with. Then I use my comb to guide the shape of the bangs the way I want them to be. I repeat this process a couple of times. So I pour water and then I shape the bangs. I like to shape the ends of the bangs by pressing them onto the straw with a comb. When I feel like I'm done, I like to twist the straw a little bit downwards before I remove it. Afterwards, I wrap the doll in a towel as best as I can, and I use a hair dryer to dry the bangs. As you can see, I isolate the bangs, and I place the straw under the bangs to help them keep the shape. I'm using the only hair dryer I have with 2 heat settings, so I'm gonna use the lower setting. And then I'm gonna carefully blow onto the bangs and make sure I don't get too close to the doll because kanekalon hair can get fried from a lot of heat. The way I do it is I dry the bangs a little bit, then I turn the hair dryer off, I style the bangs a little bit with the comb, and then I continue using the blow dryer until I'm satisfied with the result. If there are any irregularities in the bangs, like a different length of hair strands, I'm just gonna clip those off at the end. Now this step may take a bit longer because I need to be super patient to not ruin the hair that I put so much time into saving. But after a little while the bangs are dry and she's ready for the next steps. Now I want to see if I can improve the look of this grass skirt. As I was touching it, it just continued to shed tinsel, so I decided that I probably need to add a little bit more of it to make it look nicer. For that, I'm gonna use this gold tinsel that I found in a local store. The shade seems to be a little bit brighter than the original tinsel, but it probably won't matter at the end. I'm going to use a needle to guide the tinsel into the belt of the skirt. I'm actually going to try to secure the tinsel onto the seam of the belt. So I'm gonna go inside with the needle, find the thread of the seam, and pull 1/2 of the tinsel through this seam. Now pulling on the tinsel with a needle causes it to curl up, so I'll have to be more careful. But if you gently pull on the tinsel, it should straighten up. So now that the tinsel strand is in the belt, I'm gonna secure it with tying one simple knot and then the other. And then I'll gently incorporate it into the skirt. So again, I'll thread the tinsel through the needle, like so. Find the seam in the skirt belt. Drive the needle through that seam, gently. and then pull one half of the tinsel strand. Center it and tie 2 simple knots to secure it in place. I'm doing it this way because I want the tinsel to be secure, but I want the knot to be hidden under the belt. And here is the skirt after one layer of adding tinsel along the belt. Here's the second layer about halfway through. And I'm gonna show you once again how I lead the tinsel through the seam of the belt. So I locate the seam. It's very difficult to see on camera, but maybe you'll be able to spot it. I push the needle through it very gently. See, there's the seam. And I pull the tinsel through. Now I hold one end of the tinsel and pull the other end through completely. And then I center it and tie it twice. All this while being very gentle so that the tinsel doesn't curl up. And I gently straighten it. After a while, the tinsel starts blending in nicely. And I'll show it once more for good measure. So I find the seam, I pull the needle through. You can see the seam there. I secure one end of the tinsel and I very gently pull the other end through. I center the tinsel and I tie 2 simple knots to secure it in place. As I'm building up the tinsel layers, the skirt is starting to look much better. This is how the skirt looks after a couple of layers of new tinsel added from the bottom. Don't worry, I'll trim the skirt later. Now it's time to add some tinsel also from the top, all along the belt. And I'm gonna do exactly the same thing I did from the bottom. I'm gonna locate the seam, drive the needle through it, hold one end, pull the other through, center the tinsel, and tie 2 knots. And I'm gonna repeat this across the entire length of this belt. And here are a couple of layers added from the top. Again, I'm gonna trim this off later. I also noticed a bunch of these thin strands throughout the skirt, which didn't seem like they were from tinsel. So I looked at some videos of Hula Hair Barbie, and thanks to Chad Marvelous's unboxing of Hula Hair Teresa, I found that there's supposed to be some sort of wire. Now the closest I could get to that was this pearl cotton embroidery thread. Now this may be a bit too thick. This is size 8, but this is the closest I could get in this color. However, it seems to be working pretty well, so I'll do the exact same thing I did with the tinsel with this thread. So here it is after a couple of added threads. And here's the ready skirt. I've already trimmed it as well. I think it looks really good. Next I want to straighten out the skirt using a flat iron. And I only have the simple one that only has one button and no heat settings, so I'll have to be very careful. But I think both tinsel and the cotton thread are okay with higher temperatures. I don't want to linger on it too long, just to make sure I don't melt any of the tinsel or otherwise damage the skirt after so much work. But now it's ready. It just needs an additional trim at the bottom. But what to do with the bikini top? So my idea is to replicate this foil transfer art. So you can get these sets online, and they usually come with a bunch of various foils of all kinds of colors and patterns. I managed to damage this green one, so I'll use it for demonstration purposes. But the idea is very simple. This is kind of a coloring book where you peel off parts of the picture and there's a sticky surface to which you attach the foil, and once you peel it off, the metallic part of the foil is now on the picture. So I want to see if I can replicate it with some textile glue and this golden foil, which is the closest to the original. I forgot to record this, but long story short, it didn't work. The textile glue just wouldn't stick to this bikini top because there's some sort of plastic. But I'm not giving up. Next I want to try this contact adhesive. But to be honest, it smells pretty toxic, so I'm not sure I actually want to do this. But let's try. Well, that does not stick at all. It seems like it's drying out way too fast, and after a couple of seconds this is just one big goop, so that's a fail. I'll try if it will work better straight from the tube using a paintbrush. But no, it really dries in seconds and it just won't stick to the bikini top at all. So, fail. I had a sudden idea to use clear nail polish. But this was way too runny and I couldn't make the swirls the way I wanted, so I had to abort this really fast. I even wanted to try if it would work with double-sided tape, and in theory yes, it works because the foil will stick nicely to the tape. However, at least this specific type of double-sided tape is just way too thick, and I can't really use this in any way on the bikini top. But I went back to the textile glue and I got a different brand. This one to be more specific. And I wanted to give it another try. I could tell immediately from the smell that this is a different type of textile glue. So I used a very thin paintbrush to apply this textile glue into swirly patterns onto the bikini top. Then I cut up the foil into small squares so that it's easier to work with, and I very gently pressed the transfer foil onto the glue. Then I did the same on the other half of the bikini and applied the foil. Now you may have noticed I have the bikini on this little bottle, and that's just because I needed a way to stretch the bikini out so that I can work with it. I also didn't want to stretch out the rubber band that's on the bikini too much, so I used 2 safety pins on the ends of the bikini and tied those together around the bottle in order to stretch the front side of the bikini so that it lies flat. And I'm saying the word bikini way too many times. After 24 hours, I went to check on the bottle and I accidentally ripped off one of the foils, but hey, it seems to be working, so I'm very hopeful and excited. So now, let's take off the remaining foils. Have to be very gentle not to pull it too strongly, but yes, this seems to have worked as well. Now the third one, I guess I used too little of the glue because it doesn't look as good as I wanted it to be. But since this method seems to be somewhat working, I'm just gonna repeat the process on this one swirl. So again, I'm just gonna add the textile glue into the swirl pattern using a thin paintbrush. And then I'll gently apply the foil on top of the glue. You don't want to use a lot of the glue so that when you press the foil, it doesn't become one big blotch. As I was removing this piece of foil, the pattern wouldn't want to separate, so I had to hold it down with the tip of a needle. After that, the foil came off easily, and I can now say that I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's by no means perfect, but to me it's a massive upgrade compared to what it was before. I think I'm ready to put it onto the doll. Not so fast. While I was dressing the doll, the hook part of the Velcro strap came off. And now I have to find a way to put it back on and secure it somehow. Since I have the textile glue, I'm actually just gonna glue it back in place. So this glue requires both sides to be covered with a thin layer of glue, which I am going to do. And then I need to let these rest for 2 to 5 minutes. After that, they are ready to be joined and pressed together firmly to make sure that the glued parts will stick together really well. However, now I have to wait another 24 hours for this to dry. So I might as well just fix this rubber band, because it is actually a bit loose and I don't like how it fits on the doll. Since it's still somewhat elastic, I'm just gonna use a bit of thread to make it shorter. Of about this much. And just sew it in together like so. Here it doesn't have to look pretty. I just want it to be really secure because I don't want any more drawbacks. Now I'll just snip off the end, and actually that's a bit too long still, so I'll snip off a bit more. And now, because I'm paranoid, I'm just gonna use a bit of the textile glue to glue the ends together, just to make sure it doesn't come apart. I'll even make sure to work it in really well with this needle, just to be sure. And now we wait. Well, actually, you know what? I don't trust that this will hold, so I'm just gonna use a bit of thread to additionally secure it in place. And it's probably really good that I'm doing this, because I'm noticing one thing, and that's the fact that this Velcro is actually falling apart. As you can probably see here, I can just pull it apart easily with my fingers. Introducing a new friend called Fray Check. I'm gonna apply a bit of it onto the sides to make sure that the Velcro holds together. And just for good measure, I'm gonna add a little bit to the rubber band as well. Alright, after 24 hours, everything seems to be fine. The Velcro seems to be holding. And it's not as sightly, but I don't mind, as long as it holds. It's gonna be hidden behind the hair anyway. Now, one more thing I have to fix are her knees, because after the wash, somehow they became super loose and she just won't hold any pose. So for this, I'm gonna use a bit of super glue that I'm going to apply behind her knee joints in very, very small amounts, little by little, making sure that it goes in between the seams. And then I'm going to repeatedly bend her leg to work the glue in between the seams a bit better. Now you have to do this continuously, because the glue may get stuck in one position and then you won't be able to move the doll anymore. Here I left it for a couple of minutes and it almost stayed stuck in this position. So I figured I just have to continue working it a little bit more. So I'm gonna repeat the same process on the other leg. And you can add as much or as little glue as you need. The only thing is you have to continuously move that joint. But now the joints are finally ready and they are not dangling lifelessly as they were before. And I can finally pose her. It actually requires a bit of force to be able to bend these knees now, which is exactly what I wanted. Now, a byproduct of this is this white residue, which is unfortunately common for super glue. And to me it doesn't really matter, I'm happy I can pose her, but I have found that using just a regular Q-tip can mitigate this issue somewhat. So all I'm gonna do is just use this dry Q-tip and rub the white residue off. Now it's not really removing the glue itself, honestly it's just removing the powder that's rubbing off as I'm working the joints. It's not gonna do any miracles, but I think it improves the overall appearance quite a lot. If there are any bigger chunks of the dried up glue, I just scrape them off using something sharp. However, working the joints will still produce the dust, so it's not eliminating the problem entirely. But as I said, I really don't mind, I just want her to be poseable. And hopefully now I can finally dress her up. And after this long journey, we are finally here. Hula Hair Barbie restored and ready. I love her hair. I can't stress that enough. I also really like how her grass skirt came out. However, the ends curled up a little bit, which I really don't mind at this point. The color combination of her hair is just serving summer vibes. It's so beautiful, it's so vibrant and lively. The boil wash again made the hair look amazing. It's so soft and shiny. She's just overall a really gorgeous doll, and I'm really hoping that I could acquire the African American version and Hula Hair Teresa as well one day. So after a long journey, we are finally at the end. Please let me know what you think about this whole process and how do you like the final results. I'll be so happy to read your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you again so much for watching this video, and I want to wish you a wonderful day.